stop vibe coding and do this instead. Now look, AI models are great. We can generate massive amounts of code. They save us hundreds, probably thousands of hours of time, and we can generate some really interesting products with them. But when you want to become a professional software engineer, the way you use AI needs to change. You can't simply just prompt the model all the time. There are situations where you need to go in and you need to read the code. You need to look up definitions. You need to run a debugger. And especially when something goes wrong with the model, you have to have the right tool to be able to solve those problems. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up Python for professional AI development. Now, what I mean by that is not writing AI applications, but using AI in a professional manner so that you can work like the top software engineers do. This means we're not purely just relying on Claude code. We're using a professional IDE with the correct AI integrations. We're setting up MCP servers, skills, debuggers, profilers, whatever, all of those kinds of things so that we get all of those professional tools plus the AI so we can be extra productive and again, work like a real professional developer, not a vibe coder. So with that said, let's get into the video and let me show you the exact setup. I guarantee you're going to learn something. So what I'm going to do here is show you how to set up your environment so you get access to all of the features that I mentioned previously. Now, in order to do that, we are going to need an IDE or an integrated development environment. Now, for this video, I'm going to be using PyCharm. The reason for that is that whenever I work in large Python applications, this is the editor or IDE that I use because it's specifically designed for working with Python. I mean, the name literally has Python or Py inside of it. So it has native integrations with things like Fast API. It has great support for machine learning, AI development, notebooks, all of the stuff that you would do with Python. It's built specifically for that. With smaller applications, it doesn't really matter. You can use anything that you want. But again, I'm focusing on more of the professional workflow here, where if you actually want to level up as a developer, you're going to want to use a tool that has a lot more features that's designed for the language and libraries that you're using. So anyways, the first step in this video, if you don't already have it, is going to be to download PyCharm. This is free to use. They do have a pro version of this that unlocks some more features, gives you, for example, additional AI usage and credits. And there's some subscriptions related to that I'll go over later. But generally speaking, you can use all of this completely for free. And that's one of the reasons that I've teamed up with JetBrains and PyCharm for this particular video, because they've been a long-term sponsor of the channel. And I personally love their products. So anyways, I'll leave a link to it in the description. And then what we're going to do is just open up the PyCharm application. And I'm going to start going through all of the different kind of features and showing you how to use this professionally. I'm going to show you how to set up the AI agents, how to bring in different models, everything that I know you guys want to see. So first things first, when we open up PyCharm, we're just going to want to create a new project. We're just going to do this for kind of demo purposes. And then of course, if you're working in a larger code base, you just open that up. So what I'm going to do for now is just go with new project. When I go new project, I have a lot of options here within PyCharm. I can choose the framework. So I'm going to go with Fast API and we'll just build out like a simple app in this video so you can see kind of the flow and the tools that we use. I'm going to go with create git repository, and then we have the ability to choose the environment that we're going to use for our virtual environment. Now, the virtual environment in Python is super important. There's a lot of different options for creating the virtual environment. Personally, I like to use UV. Now, if you don't know what UV is, it's really just a package manager for Python, very similar to pip, and it just handles all of the dependencies for your Python project. So in the case of Fast API, look, we need to install a Fast API. We would do that using UV, and I'll leave a video on screen that goes through how it works in case you want to learn more. Anyways, you can choose whatever virtual environment provider you want. Again, I'm using UV. You can choose the version for Python. I'll just leave it as default. And then the paths here should be automatically populated. And I've just checked this to create a Git repository. I'm also going to put it on my desktop. And then, of course, I can change the name of the application if I want. So for now, let's go ahead and press on create. That's going to open up PyCharm in a window that looks something like this. What I'm going to do for now is just add this to Git, so these files that are created automatically, and we'll go from there. Now, if it's your first time working in PyCharm or you're just opening up this project for the first time, you might get a few pop-ups here. So for example, it's asking me to enable this feature, so I'll just go ahead and do that and just enable this particular workspace. And you may get a few other things, for example, like asking you to enable the AI chat, to put in a subscription key. Again, you'll get 1 month of the pro version for free if it's your first time, and then after that, you can just use it for free with just some of the features gone. But most of those features are not going to be critical to you, and again, are really designed for professionals, people working at enterprises, etc. Okay, so from here, I just want to give you a quick kind of lay of the land in the editor because there is a lot going on here and it can be a little bit overwhelming. And then I want to start getting right into the AI stuff so you can understand how we can bring in AI models, use different agents, because you're not locked into kind of the JetBrains provided agent here. You can work with Claude Code, you can work with Codex, you can work with various other models directly inside of this editor, but you get the full suite of tools, which is the reason why you would use it. Okay, so if we start kind of just going through here, on Mac and Windows, it may be a little bit different, but you should have some big file menus at the top. So just keep this in mind. If you want to open something, save something, look at the settings, you can do that all from here. You can change the views, refactor, tools. So if you're looking for something specific, check out this kind of file menu and it will probably show you where the command is. If you want to search for a specific tool, you can go to this kind of search bar here. So in my case, like I'm zoomed in quite a bit in the editor so you guys can see it. And I've also adjusted the font size so you can like increase adjust the font size if you like to do that. I like my text pretty large because I'm kind of blind. From here, you also see a settings knob just to get you into the settings. So if I click this, I have settings and plugins. There is a bunch of options here, and we're going to be going through these menus in a second, and we just directly search for the features that we want. Okay, now, of course, on the left-hand side, you're going to have the project view, so you can view all of the different files that you have here. You can close something, make a new file. If you want to make a new one, you can right-click and go new and just select the type that you want. And then also, if we go here, you have a Python console where you can directly execute code. So you can tell, x equals 2, x, and then you'll just get the result of x here. As you can see, you can debug, step through the code. We have Python packages, so this will show you the dependencies that are installed in this particular project. This is a cool feature of PyCharm that it kind of handles all of that for you automatically. So if we look at Fast API here, you'll see that it's recognized by the particular editor. We can kind of hover over anything and we can see what it actually is, the type of it. We get the autocomplete. We can see what these routes are and view the doc strings of them. And then if we wanted to install a new package, for example, maybe we want, SQLite or something, we could search for it, just find the particular package, have a look at it here, and install. Now, of course, you can install it from the terminal as well, which you can view from this kind of window right here. But if you just want to use the built-in dependency manager, you have that there. You also have services if you're running various APIs or Docker containers or databases. You have problems, so if there's any errors or stuff like, so let's say I do something like this, it'll show up here, right, in problems saying it cannot resolve the type if you want to quickly find any mistakes. And then you have the Git view where you can see what branch you're on, any of the commits, and you can view that from here as well for the current commit and kind of commit messages for Git. So I know there's a lot of stuff going on here. You'll get more familiar with it later. And then, of course, you can reorganize or navigate through any of these views by kind of dragging them to the side, moving them up and down, dragging them over where you want to move them, rearranging them. You guys get the idea. Let me move this back up here. Okay. So now that we've kind of gone through just a general lay of the land in terms of what's here, let's start having a look at the AI setup because in 2026 and beyond, that is the most important. Okay, so how do you use AI inside of this editor? Now, in order to do this, you're going to want to toggle this AI chat window. You can find it on the right-hand side. If you can't find it for some reason, just go here to View, go to the Tools windows, and then find AI Assistant. From AI Assistant, you can change your agent. We're going to talk about what that means in a second to either Claude, Codex, or Junie by default. If for some reason you want to use a different type of agent, you can install that from the ACP directory. This is, I think, Agent Context Protocol or something, and you can see there's a ton of different options here. So this is fully open to you. If you bring in various other agents, obviously you don't have to use credits through JetBrains system because they have kind of a credit usage system by default with their Junie agent and through some of the other agents that are here. But if you want to bring in your own, if you want to use a local model, you can 100% do that, and you effectively just select whatever model you want. Now, I want to make a distinction here between agents, which are kind of seeing like this, and then models, because you'll notice that I'm in Junie, but in Junie, I have the ability to select different models. Now, the way that you should view an agent is essentially like a coding harness. Now, coding harness is kind of a specialized set of tools that actually runs an underlying model. So the model is kind of like the brain, right? And effectively, all that's doing is just producing text output. You give it some text in, it gets some text out. Now, Claude, Codex, Junie, these are what's called agent harnesses or model harnesses or whatever you want to refer to them as. What they do is they provide sets of tools and features and kind of context engineering to the underlying model. So if I look at Junie here, like I can use GPT 5.5, But if I switch over to Codex here and we go into the agent mode, you can see I also can use GPT 5.5. So the difference is not the model, it's the harness or kind of the infrastructure around the model. So with Junie, this is designed specifically for working inside of JetBrains IDE, so you may get some better performance. And then of course, Claude and Codex, if for some reason you prefer to use those, you can directly inside of this tool. Again, you may be using the same underlying model, but you have a different harness around it, and you need to play with those and see which one works best for you. That's why in different tools, again, you use the same model, but you get a different performance from the model based on what the tools are doing or the harness is doing to engineer the context, provide the skills, provide the MCP server definitions, all of that stuff that's working in the background that's built by smarter people than us. So anyways, that's kind of how this works in terms of selecting the various models. Now, if you want to go into more settings, you can go here to the settings view from these three dots, and you can see a bunch of options here. For example, like your subscription, if you're going to use this directly from JetBrains, all of this stuff. And then if we open up kind of this, larger view, you can see we have the agents, we have model context protocol. I've added a MCP server, which I'll talk to you guys about later. Project settings, prompt library. So if you want to add, prompts that you can reuse, you can add them here. Providers and APIs. So this is one that you probably want to pay attention to. From here, this is where you can sign into your various accounts. So for example, my Claude agent is using the JetBrains AI subscription. Junie is obviously managed by JetBrains. And then if I want to use my GPT subscription rather than the JetBrains subscription, I can sign in directly here with my ChatGPT account. So let me do that. And now I'm signed in, so any of the usage that I have here is going to go through my ChatGPT subscription or my Codex subscription or whatever. It's not going to go through JetBrains AI. Now, if we go back to settings, I also just want to show you the local model stuff. So if we have a look at, providers and APIs, we can also bring in other providers. So if I want to use Gemini, anything OpenAI compatible, LM Studio, Ollama, I can just do that, right? So I can go Ollama, I can put in the Ollama URL, I can select a few features here, and now I can start using local models. If I want to use LM Studio, same thing, I can connect to LM Studio, and then any models I have in there that are connected, I can use them directly from here. So it's fully up to you what you want to do. And then of course we have rules, we'll look at those later. Skills, so a skill directory, and then trusted domains, but don't worry too much about that for right now. Okay, so that's effectively how you kind of connect the AI, right? So we'll pick whatever we want to use. I'll just stick with Junie because I have the subscription. And if you want to see your usage here, you can click into this button at the top and it will show you the number of credits, when the credits renew, and if you want to buy more features, all of this kind of stuff. Okay, so let's start by just giving a few prompts to the model. I'll typically enable this Brave mode here and use one of the best models. So I'm going to go with GPT 5.5. And for now, I just want this to scaffold a fast API application for me so that I have enough code that we can kind of move from there. So what I'm going to do is the following. Can you create a fast API CRUD application for me that represents a library? I want Pydantic types, I want routes, I want a modular code base, and I want you to connect to a SQLite database for all of the operations that's running locally on my computer. Build all of this out. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and press enter. And while that runs, I'll just let you guys know that what I'm using to dictate here is a really cool tool called Whisper Flow. It's the best AI voice dictation. I have a long-term partnership with them, so I'll leave a link to it in the description. It's free to use, and it's just very, very fast, very good, automatically formats your text. And most importantly, it's way faster to talk than it is to type. You can see my average words per minute is 203. And if I click in, you can see, how much I use this. So yeah, sure, they're a partner, but I would use this anyways. Okay, so let's wait for this to run. You'll notice that with Junie specifically, this usually will plan everything out quite detailed before it just jumps into it, which is good, but can mean it takes a little bit longer, and then it should start writing the code. If you've enabled this Brave mode, it should just automatically do that for you. If you want approvals on everything, you can disable that. And if you want extended thinking, then you can enable that, but obviously it's going to take a little bit longer. All right, so it's wrapped up here. We can see that it's created the new files. We can click in and we can view all of the diffs here if we want to view that directly in the editor. And then of course we can view all the files. So we have our database.py, repository, schemas, etc. Now, if you're specifically working with SQL related stuff inside of some project here, what I'm going to recommend you do is the following. If you hover over this, you'll notice that it's kind of giving you this weird color, and it says no data sources are configured to run the SQL and provide advanced code assistance. Disable the inspection via problem menu. So there's a few things we can do here. First, we can type SQL dialects. And if we go to SQL dialects, what we're able to do here inside of our settings is change the project SQL dialect to be the one that we're using, which in this case is SQLite. Now, this is going to tell PyCharm that this is the SQL syntax that we want to use, so we'll automatically validate that for us and allow us to also run SQL code, which you'll see in a minute. Now, another thing that we want to do is we want to hook up our database here directly to the project. So if I go to the Databases tab, again, if you can't find it, you can go here to View, Tool window, and then find Databases. And also keep in mind that this may only be on the Pro subscription. So if you're using the free version, I'm not sure if this one's included or not. But what you can do is you can go here. You can go add data source from file or folder. And now if I go find my project, so desktop, I think fast API project, and I have this, where is it here? Library.SQLite file. So you can see that that's right here, library.db. I can actually just open this up directly inside of here. So you can see I'm using the SQLite driver. If for some reason that's not here, you can download the SQLite driver or select it, and then I can apply, press OK, and you'll see that it now gives me access to my database here, and I can actually go in and view everything. So I can view the table, I can see the indexes, right? In books, you can see I don't have any rows. And then if I want, I can run queries. So I can query in the console, and I can do something like, select asterisk, whatever, from the table, and I can start viewing all the results of the query. So you have the database viewer directly inside of here, which I find is quite useful. And now you're going to notice that this goes away because I've connected the database. So now PyCharm can automatically hook up to this, start running queries, looking through the table, etc. Okay, so at this point, hopefully you understand the AI connection and how you talk with the AI chat and how everything is kind of hooking up and connecting to one another. All this stuff now you're going to see like all of our commits, right? The whole structure of the code base. If you go structure, you can see everything that's in a particular file. This is all here for a reason to make it easier for you when you're working in large professional projects to understand what's going on. We also now are going to get this database changes tab that pops up because we've connected the database. And then of course you can view the Git diffs and stuff here. All right, so we have this set up. However, I want to go a little bit further with the AI because I want to connect some MCP servers and start setting up skills and rules to make it easier for us to work in this code base. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to go to MCP servers. So to get to MCP servers, I can go to settings here and I can just search for MCP. When I do that, I should be able to find Model Context Protocol down here and click into the view. Okay, so actually what I'm going to do, let me just delete this configuration and then I'll make a new one to show you how to add the GitHub MCP. So what we're going to do is we're going to press on this plus button here for MCP. We're going to switch over to HTTP. And if we have a look here at the GitHub official documentation for their MCP server, which I'll link below, you can see that we have this thing say using a GitHub PAT. Now what I'm going to do is just copy it a little bit different than you typically see. So I'm just going to take this part here where it just says GitHub. So I'm kind of in between servers and inputs, and I'm just grabbing this part that says GitHub. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to go to this part and replace this. So inside MCP servers, I'm going to add GitHub. I think it's just lagging because we had this before. So I'm just going to go GitHub MC or -MCP. Okay, and you'll see that we have this type, URL, and then we have this headers, authorization, and this bearer, and then this value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this value right here with my GitHub personal access token. Let me get it, and then I'll show you how to get it as well. Okay, so my token is in here. I'm not going to show you the rest of it. And then once it's here, I'm just going to go ahead and press on OK, and then I can press apply, and it should connect. Now, of course, for you, it's not going to work here because you don't have the personal access token. So here's how you get it. You go to GitHub, you go to your profile, make sure you're signed in, obviously, and you have an account. Go to settings, and then scroll all the way to developer settings. From developer settings, go to personal access tokens. So actually, sorry, for tokens, I think tokens classic for me usually works better. So I'd make a classic token. Go to generate new token classic, and then inside here you want to select repo, and then you're going to want to select the stuff for user, and you can kind of go through and see what you need access to. But in most cases, I only need user, and then repo. And then when you do that, you should be able to like create new repos. And then if you select those, you should pretty much be good to go. You can give it a name, whatever, and then go generate token. And then once the token is generated, you just copy it, and that's the value that you're going to put where I showed you here. Authorization. So bearer, space, and then your token, and then go ahead and just press on OK, okay, and it should be added. Now, if you want to test it, you go to your agent. Hey, are you connected to the GitHub MCP server? What tools do you have access to? You may need to just make a new agent chat. If it doesn't work, just do a new chat so it refreshes, and let's see if it gives us the result. Okay, so you can see it has access. So now anything we want to do with Git, we can just tell it. So I can say, make a new public GitHub repository and then push all of the code from this project to that repo, set it up as the remote origin, and use that in the future. Okay, and we'll go ahead and press enter, and it should just make a new repo for us on GitHub. Okay, so it's in the process of doing this right now, but I can just see that it made this new repo, Fast API project, hasn't pushed the code to it yet. That's what it's gonna do right now. And then of course, we can always check on what's going on in this Git, project here, or Git view, where it says what it's doing, the commits it's making, all of this kind of stuff, and we can see the remote. So it looks like it has created it, and now it's just gonna push the project. Okay, and it says it's finished, so if I go here, you can see now the project is here, and Tech with Tim and Junie Agent have pushed this code up to the repo. Perfect. So that is pretty much good. We're connected to the MCP. Next, I want to talk about rules and skills. So if we go back to our settings and we search for rules, you can see that there is a rules folder under AI assistance. Now, what we're able to do here is make new project rules. We also can tell the agent to make these, but I just wanted to show you that there's a view for doing this. And a rule is something that's always going to be injected into the prompt anytime you chat with the various agents. So if I want to make a new rule, I can do something like always commit, and then I can just, let's add this to Git. Okay, and for this rule, we can see it's created now, and what I need to do is obviously write it. So if I go back to the view, you'll see there's this new folder now, AI Assistant rules, and always commit.md is here. I can choose how I want the rule to be applied, and then I can populate it with whatever I want. So I can say, always commit any major changes to Git before proceeding. Okay, super simple rule. And now anytime that this is doing something, it should be following this rule and automatically pushing changes to Git. You can make multiple different rules. Again, you can make them manually. You can tell the agent to make them, but it's typically good practice to set them up and then stage them in Git so your other teammates will have the same rules when they're doing development. Okay, so I'm going to delete that rule, or not delete it, but just remove this folder. And now I want to talk about skills. If you don't yet know what a skill is, effectively, it's a reusable workflow that can be read by the agent dynamically whenever it needs to do something that's kind of documented or that it does frequently. So you could have a skill that explains how to deploy the project or do a security check or whatever, anything you want, you can wrap into a skill. I'll show you how we can install pre-built skills and then how we can make our own. So in terms of skills, what we can do is we can go to settings. We can search for skills, and you'll see that it brings us to the skill hub, which is built in here to PyCharm. Now from here, you have the ability to import any skills that you have from other IDEs or agents, or you can look at the installed skills. You see I have some from Codex that are automatically brought in, and then you can search for various skills. So let's say we want, backend. Is there a skill for backend? Yeah, we have modern web guidance, Kotlin backend, whatever. We could just install this and then we can use it directly inside of the chat. And you can also install it for specific agents if you want. So PyCharm, Fast API, Codex, you guys get the idea. These are just skills that come from the skills hub that's built into PyCharm. If you want to import your own skills, you can do that easily by just putting them into the correct folder. If you want to import your own skills, you can do that easily by just making them or putting them in the correct folder. And then you can see that you can manage the skills directory right here by choosing where you want to grab them. And you can manage the external registries if you want to add various other skill directories directly inside of here. Okay, so in my case, I installed this security best practices skill. If you want, you can just search for it, you'll find it. And if I wanted to try to use it, I can just type try in chat. You'll see that by default, it will go to the Claude agent because that's the one that it's installed for. And then I could start chatting with it. Now, if you don't want to use it in this agent or you want to make your own skill, let's say we go back to Junie here, I can say, hey, make a skill that just outlines the stack for my project. So anytime we need to understand the tooling or frameworks that we're using, we can invoke this skill. And then if I do that, it should just automatically make a new skill for me and put that in the Junie agent directory. Give it a second and see if it gives us that. All right, so it's completed now. We can see we've got a new skill file. This is what the skill file looks like. You can see at the beginning, we have a name and the description. And then when the agent needs it, it can read the entire file. And this just explains what stack to use. This is a poor example of a skill, but I'm just showing you that you can create them. And by the way, if you have Markdown here, you can actually preview what the Markdown looks like directly in here, which I do all the time. You can see the images, all this stuff like by viewing this. Okay, so we have this skill. This skill is now put in this Junie folder under skills and project stack. So you could just manually create it there as well. And if you ask the agent to do something that involves the use of the skill, it should use that automatically. So if you say something like, what is the project stack? Use the project stack skill. Again, I'm being very explicit. Then you should see that it's going to go, see it says skills update. Boom, looks at the skill, and then it will give us the information based on what's inside of here because it's reading the skill document. Okay, so I think we've gotten a sense of kind of using the AI chat. Of course, you can just ask it to generate whatever you want. Typically, it is a better idea to get it to create a plan first. We're not really building a large app right now, so I don't need that at the moment. But you'll notice there is already a plans folder created for us because it likes to outline what it's working on, and this is best practice, kind of doing spec-driven development. Anyways, we're not going to get into that too much. What I want to show you now is more validating the application once it's created, because this is where this tool really comes in, as opposed to purely vibe coding or using Claude Code or a CLI-based tool, etc. So you'll notice right away, actually, that there's this test main.http folder that will be your file, that will be created for you when you make a new Fast API app. You can make multiple of them, you can organize them, you can rename them, but this will actually allow you to automatically send requests to your API and have kind of a file with tests so you can view what's going on. Now, of course, you can write PyTest tests, and that's natively supported inside of PyCharm. But if you just want to do quick endpoint tests, you can do that here, and you can configure an environment in terms of running it if you want to add different credentials, API connections, etc. Now, in order for this to work, we do need to run the application. So to run it, you should have a build automatically configured. If you don't, you can go to configuration, go to edit, and you can make a new build. So you have run debug configurations, right? So what I can do is for Fast API here, I can do plus, go, okay, I want to run a new Fast API application. The name is name, whatever the application file is, select the file that you want to run, select the name or auto detect. You can set up the environment if you want to load in different environment variables. Maybe you have a staging, a production, a development environment, choose your interpreter. You can do everything here and set it up so that you can launch it properly. Now, again, by default, it will give you a configuration which you can look at as a reference. So you see we're going to run with Unicorn. We're going to reload. We have maybe an environment variable file we want to bring in. Here's the application file. So what I can do is select Fast API project and then run. And when I run that, it will automatically spin that up for me in the dedicated terminal. Now from here, once this is running, of course, I could just open this. So if I open up this folder, you can see, or this directory or whatever link we get this. If I go to /docs, because it's Fast API, you can see I have everything here. And if I want to do maybe a test execution, I can try it out, execute, and you see we're going to get the logs down here in terms of calling books. Now, as well as that, if we now go back to test main, if I want to execute these, I can run them all. And when I do that, if we open this up a little bit larger, you're going to see that we get the request, we get the response, and we can verify everything directly inside of here. And it all gets saved into this JSON file where you can see what the response actually is. This is super useful if there's a lot of endpoints that you want to be testing. So you can make sure you're getting the correct status code back. You can make sure that it's actually creating what you want. Again, if we go in and we see, okay, this is what was created when we tried to create a new book. Perfect. And then at the same time, we can go view our database, right? We go back into books and we can see now that we have a new book created. We can delete it. We can query it. We can move it around. We can view it in a table viewer, right? There's just so many things that are going on here that are super helpful when the application gets larger to validate what's occurring. Now, as well as that, we talk about debuggers. So the app is running right now. I can stop it up here. And what I'm going to do is start showing you how to add breakpoints and test the application a little bit better. So let's say we're inside of books, right? And maybe I want to test the, read book route and just make sure it's working. What I can do is place a breakpoint. It's this red dot here by just pressing in what's called the gutter or like the line number. And I can add as many breakpoints as I want. Now, the way this works is that there's a native debugger built into PyCharm. A debugger allows you to step through the code and view all of the variables and state at the current point in which the breakpoint occurred. So what will happen is the app will just run normally when I run it in this debug mode, which you'll see in a second, but it will stop execution and freeze at any breakpoint, and you can have multiple breakpoints that you place. As soon as you get to the breakpoint, it's going to give you a set of controls, which I'll show you, which will allow you to step through the code and view any of the state changes that are occurring so you can more accurately and just more easily see what's actually going on to potentially make changes. So let's make this maybe a bit smaller so we can see. And to run this with the debugger and breakpoints active, you can press on this run in debug mode here. Again, you'll notice that it's going to spin up and nothing will happen at the beginning because we haven't yet hit a breakpoint. But now if I go to my, let's maybe just open this up here. Let's go to our test file and let's just run all of this. When we run all of this, what will happen is you'll see that immediately we're going to get brought into this debug view. So what happened is when I ran that, one of my endpoints hit a breakpoint. So I went to read book or I went to replace book and we hit the endpoint, and you can see I'm now here. And what I can do now is I can start stepping through this code. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but what I can do is use these buttons right here. Now, it's not a full debugger tutorial, but you'll see that we have all the different variables defined. So in this case, we have book ID is equal to 1. And if I press this step over here, what I'm going to do is move to the next line. And I can start stepping through these various lines. I can step into functions. I can step out of, over, into. It's a little bit complicated. And what will happen is we'll kind of just go line by line. So you can see I go here. I can see what the values are. I can keep going. You see that I hit this next breakpoint now because this one was finished and now we're trying to update the book. I can see, okay, this is the book state itself. I can view all of the different values, variables, properties. Again, I don't want to spend too much time here, but the point is that this debugger is extremely useful in large applications and really what you should be doing as opposed to print debugging. So at any point, if I want to quit out of this, I can just press continue and that'll go until the next breakpoint, or I can just quit it, right? And then I'm going to shut the application down and get out of this debug view. And then if I want to run it normally again, I press the normal run button. Now, of course, there are a lot of other features here. So for example, you can see all of the routes here automatically being populated for us because it has, fast API support. If we're in the pro version of PyCharm, there's actually a view that we can go to. Let me find view, tool window. And if I find endpoints here, you'll see that it actually shows us all of the endpoints that are defined in our app. And if we click in, we can actually directly test them from here, assuming that the server API is running. So that's kind of a nice feature of PyCharm and the fact that it has that fast API support. Continuing, if we look at some other windows, we have hierarchy view, Jupyter variables. We have the to-do list. If we create these like to-do comments, you can do like to-do, update this so that you remember to do it. And then if you go here and you go to to-dos, we can check it out and will be down here and we can see the to-dos that we need to complete. Continuing, we also have coverage. So if you're working with CI/CD and you're familiar with test coverage, there is something related to that, but I'm not going to get into that. Okay, so continuing here, let me just show you a few last things. Of course, there's so many features, so it's hard to kind of cover it all. One thing I do all the time, especially in a large code base, is kind of exploring the code base. So there is a search feature here called Find. If you're finding, you could search everywhere. You could search in particular files. And if, for example, I search for, fast API, you can see that I can search directly in the repo and try to find like the instances of where this exists. I also can do all kinds of filters and stuff for the search, look for files, symbols, actions, text, etc., depending on what I'm trying to find. That's pretty straightforward, just kind of a find tool. Now, let's say there's this book, right? And I'm like, okay, what is this book type? Like, I don't really understand. First, I can hover over it. If I hover over it, it's going to define where it actually is. But what I typically do is we'll right click on it and go to, and then go to the definition or the declaration. So there's a lot of, stuff that you can look at here. But if I go to type declaration, for example, it will bring me right to book. So a lot of times when you're stepping through code, what you'll want to be doing is doing that. So for example, if we go, database, actually maybe let's go repository. Yeah, so let's say we've imported book create, right? And we don't know where that is. Well, I can just go here, go find, go to type declaration. Boom, I see book create is right here, and I can very easily step into that code. So just showing you that exists. We also have the ability to, for example, maybe refactor something. So let's go back here. So go to type declaration. Maybe we want to refactor this. We can right click it and then go refactor, and we can rename or introduce a variable, constant. There's advanced refactoring in this tool. So when I go rename here, I have a lot of options. First of all, it's going to give me an AI suggestion of what to use, but let's say maybe I do book create too. What I can do now is I can also rename this in the text occurrences or in comments and strings. And then as soon as I'm done, I can press enter. It's going to open up this window right here, and it's going to show me where this is used. So it's giving me a preview essentially of where all of the refactoring is. I can deselect them, select them if I want, right, to not actually do the refactor. And then I can press refactor. And when I do that, it should refactor everything for me. So if I go here, you can see book create 2. If I go here, book create 2. So it changes the name everywhere in the application automatically. And again, with kind of that advanced, stuff that we were talking about here. And then there is a lot more tools on the side here for doing this. But anyways, that's the idea. Okay, so let me get out of that, and that is pretty much going to wrap this up, guys. So I know this was a long video, but I wanted to show you how you set up a professional workflow, the tools that you can use, how you use a proper editor, so you guys can get out of these CLI-based tools, you can get out of just prompting, and understand what actually happens when you have a large application that you need to maintain, change, update, deploy, view databases, and why people reach for something like this when you start becoming a professional. If you're not already, I would recommend using a tool like this. Get familiar with it, use it all the time, get comfortable, set up your keyboard shortcuts, your binds, your themes, all of that kind of stuff so that you can be as efficient as possible, especially in this era of AI. So that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap up the video here. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.